listening to the Encouraging Faith podcast, doing ministry together across generational gaps.
Hey, welcome to the Encouraging Faith podcast. I'm Pastor Doug Munton at First Baptist Church of O'Fallon, Illinois, and I'm here with our student pastor, Mariano Sarabia.
What's up?
My goodness.
You said it right.
We've been talking about the relationship of pastors and senior pastors, student pastors, really staff in general. Man, it's a important relationship, and it's part of it. Let's just face it. Part of it is personality too. Some guys it's easier. Some guys want to have a relationship more than others, but it matters. No matter what your personality is, it does matter that you work at that. Sometimes if it comes easily, great. If it doesn't, it's worth working at. So we talked a little bit in the first segment of this about how important it is that we connect, we have the same alignment, that we recognize that we're both part of the church, something bigger than it's not just a small part of the ministry, it's really the student ministry is a part of the whole. And then Mariano gave some advice to student pastors, and I think something about taking less salary. I remember that part.
I don't know about that one.
No, that wasn't
Be faithful and stay humble.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what you said. And you said I should give advice to pastors. Let me tell you, pastors, you ought to value your staff as a whole. You ought to value them. So I've got a brother who's on staff at a large church in Texas, and he's not the senior pastor. Man, I love that. My brother is I've got three brothers, just a great man. Does a great work, good heart. His pastor loves him. He loves his pastor. But I hear pastors talk so badly about their staff all the time. They joke about how worthless they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think, man, if that's my brother, I wouldn't want my brother working for you.
Yeah.
And so you ought to love that guy like he's your brother. You know, you ought to love him like he's your brother. Because in Christ,
he is.
Oh man, I mean, really, that's like I almost got kind of spiritual there. I love it when I do that. It just sometimes just happens accidentally. Yeah. And I think that's a really good starting place. And then also, if you'll just purposely say, hey, let me talk to you a little bit. So some student pastors are really other pastors in general, other staff in general. Some want you to kind of mentor, and some don't. And it's hard when they don't. It really is. You still need to make them spend time with you and make yourself spend time with them. It just matters that much. But if you can help them to see, I'm for you, I'm in love, I'm for you, I'm with you, I'll support you, I'll have your back if you'll have mine. Like if some parent comes to you and comes to me and complaining about you, I'm not going to just say, oh, of course. I'm going to assume the best in you, just like I want you to assume the best in me. That sort of thing is helpful. And it's not that we don't recognize our weaknesses. In fact, we need to recognize our weaknesses. It's just that we love each other, encourage each other, and we're for each other. I don't know. I just think I think about coaches that do that. Like some coaches, when I was in college, one of my football coaches in the paper said something about a guy caught a pass, and he said something on the paper about I did something wrong, and I thought, okay, but in the paper, I mean, you didn't say it to me. And but the coaches who did it right would say, there used to be newspapers, Mariano, I should say that to you. You don't even know what I'm talking about when I said the paper. That'd be like on the internet today. So when I know coaches, when I knew they were for me, and if something messed up, man, they weren't going to throw me under the bus. Those guys, man.
They got your back.
And I think that's how a pastor ought to be.
Yeah.
I think they ought to say, I'm for you. And now if Mariano does something terrible, we have to deal with that. But I'm not going to just assume the worst in this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
all right, there you go.
Good. That's good.
It is good, Mariano.
So we're talking about going on to that. We're gonna talk about celebrating wins and then collaborating within ministry between pastors.
So am I a good win celebrator, Mariano?
I think you've told me you struggle with it.
I do struggle with it. I'm not really.
You're on to the next thing.
So I kind of go on to the next thing, and I'm always like, I'm never satisfied, which isn't in and of itself bad to say, I want to do better always. I think that part's good. But it can keep me from celebrating wins, which would make things better it'd be good to celebrate wins.
Yeah.
I think you do that a little better.
Yeah, I'm probably more of I want to slow down, celebrate, and then get back going.
Why? Why do you think that matters?
So I think it matters with me. I think it reminds me of like, hey, we did something for the Lord, and there's a reason to celebrate, especially if it's someone coming to know Christ. And we saw that in our ministry, multiple people give their lives to Christ. It's important to take in the moment and say, celebrate it, and then give God the glory too. So like when we get to see salvations, I'm excited, but then I'm also just blessed and thankful that God saved lives.
You know what I think it is? I think maybe for me, the reason it's harder for me is because like bragging, it's not that I haven't bragged about things, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it in others especially. I excuse it in me more, but I don't like it in others. And so sometimes I'll see people use victories as ways to sort of brag on how great they are. And that doesn't have to be the case, right? Because you can really do it as a way of celebrating the Lord. Like if someone gets saved, we didn't save them anyway.
Exactly, yeah. God did.
Only God can do that, yeah. So I just need to kind of recognize, man, God is working, and at least acknowledge that God is working and that I'm really glad God's working. And by the way, one way God's working in our church is like a lot of our teenagers. We've seen a lot of teenagers come to faith. I love that. And that's an age when, if they don't come to faith in their teenage years or in their elementary school age or something, sometimes a lot of junk gets in your life.
Yeah.
A lot of sins or pride or stubbornness, etc. So I'm really glad for that. That's a win for our church. And then a lot of students who are saying, I want to do whatever God wants me to do. Yeah. Calls to ministry or to missions or to just say, I'm going to do whatever God wants me to do, I want to do. Yeah. I love seeing that. No, you need to take that call, Mariano.
Nope, sorry about that.
Oh, my goodness, Mariano.
Oh, do not disturb.
Yeah, this Mariano is one of those. This is why the senior pastor student pastor relationship is
right here. Phone calls and meetings, shame.
You know what? No, it was really the senior adult meetings where you have that it's senior adult luncheons.
There's always the same ringtone.
There are and they're really loud because the poor seniors sometimes can't hear as well, so they'll have their phones way up. And there's never been a senior adult luncheon where there's not someone's phone and it's some ring, the special ring because it's their
at the bottom of the
child
purse
or grandchild or something. Yeah.
Terrible,
oh my goodness. Or maybe it was your grandson calling you, Mariano.
Oh yeah. So what are some ways you think practically together we can celebrate each other's wins?
Well, just to note it. I mean, just to stop and say that is a good thing. I need to at staff meetings. I almost want to fix our problems always.
Yeah.
Which is good. But I need to also celebrate wins. Sometimes I need to start there and. When I catch myself, I'll do that. And sometimes you'll do that in staff meeting. You'll bring us back to, man, that was a really good thing. Or, by the way, I love it when we remember that victory in someone else's life, not just in our own too.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice when we remember the children's ministry win or the, adult ed guys or the worship ministry or something too. But that'd be a good way to do it.
Yeah, that's good. And I think too, just from the student pastor perspective, you do this already, but acknowledging it personally too. So in the meetings, celebrating, but then saying, hey, we set this goal and we're meeting this goal and God's doing some things, and that's amazing. And that doesn't mean that you can't say, hey, here's the next goal, because I want to keep growing. I want to keep working towards those things. But having those moments where we acknowledge we got to this point, and we can look forward, but also we can celebrate right here of what God's done. But I like what you said too, is while we're celebrating, remember that we're boasting in God, we're boasting in the Lord, not us.
All right, I'm going to try to do better, but I'm not sure. You're going to have to help me with this one because I don't know. So let's talk about building trust and respect between ourselves and ministry, staff and as a whole, pastors on staff, or a pastor and a volunteer. Like, how do we build trust? And I got a thought. You want me to give him my thought?
Yeah, let's hear your thought.
So here's what some guy said. This guy, I heard some guy, man, he must have been some sort of genius. He said the first step in building trust is to be trustworthy.
Yeah.
And man, that guy, whoever said that, was a genius. Because if you're not trustworthy, trust is that just erodes the trust. And so step one is to be trustworthy. Like, I should do what I say, should live what I preach, things like that. And that helps. That helps for both of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Like, I shouldn't be, I should be genuine with the volunteers or the staff guys here at church, not just like in the pulpit. Like, the guy in the pulpit should be the same. And I want to be at my best in the pulpit. It should be the same guy that's, just
in the office or at home.
At the ball game, yeah.
Yeah, I think with that being trustworthy, you kind of mentioned it, being consistent in the workplace, being disciplined. So if you say you're going to do something, do it and do it well. When you say you're going to do things on time, get it done. And then when you do mess up or make a little mistake, I think it'll also build trust in how your pastor or supervisor responds.
Exactly. If you say, I'm sorry, man, I recognize I should have done that better. Saying you're sorry over and over to something that doesn't change, I think that loses its punch. But if you're really like, I messed up and I take ownership of that, I think it's always helpful. And we all do. Yeah. I could, or just to say, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. Or I see your point. I could have said that in a different way. I need to, like, it's sort of like a marriage, isn't it? I mean, like, there's a little, I'm around guys here at church a lot. Yeah. And in my relationship with my wife, I have to sometimes just like recognize, I could have said that differently, or I could have done that differently. And it really helps if I acknowledge that, if I see that, if I take ownership of what I did wrong. And I think that's true with my relationship with staff here at church, or volunteers at church for that matter, to just kind of recognize that I'm not like, I don't have it all together. I don't always get it right. It's not all, the problems aren't always someone else's fault.
Yeah. And I think as well, building trust, respect is when you guys disagree, or when you don't see eye to eye, or if it gets to the point of conflict, handling it and not opening your mouth about it to other people, and being unified as a team. That when I see other pastors, so if I see Aaron or Josh and they do something that maybe we didn't agree about, I'm still gonna have their back, and maybe no one would even know that we disagreed about it, because we're unified. And that builds respect, because when I know we disagreed about something but we still have each other's back, I'm gonna trust that person. I'm gonna respect that person.
That's a good word. I disagree with people that I really love. I love Vicky. I just love my wife, and we've been married a long time now. We've been married longer than you, Mariano.
That's right.
How long have you been married now?
A year and like 7 months.
So we've just passed 43 years.
Wow.
Consecutively.
Praise God.
Consecutively, Mariano. 43 years. Oh, yeah. So sometimes we fight and fuss and see things differently. Do you? Yeah. You and your wife? No?
Yes.
You do?
We do.
Oh, I feel so much better knowing that you do too. But I love her. And so I can disagree with someone I really care about, and learning how to disagree or what to do when I don't see something in the same way, that helps. I've got to learn how to do that. And I think I need to learn that in relationships with other people. And sometimes the people that you're closest to are the people that you can be, they can annoy you the most, or the friction can be the greatest. Yeah. And just something good to be aware of. So the next generation's coming along. So our relationship, the partnership that we have together, probably influences the next generation.
Definitely.
Maybe more. Maybe the guys like. I'm wondering about the student who's growing up in a home where mom and dad are not together, or maybe dad's hardly ever there, or they don't have a good relationship at all with their parents, and what they see in that relationship of a pastor and staff, or the student pastor, his relationship with other people at that church, it sort of models for them a little bit about what a man is like and what a man should do. And not everyone has seen that. Maybe they don't have a man in their life at all, and that boy is growing up in a home where he doesn't hardly ever see a man, or know what a man is supposed to be like.
Yeah, so we're modeling, like you said, we're modeling behavior to students, and even the students that have a great family life, they're still paying attention to what their student pastor's life looks like, or their lead pastor. And so if they're, for instance, we have a student that's recording this podcast, and he's helping us.
He's unbelievable.
Doing the audio. Yeah, he's doing a great job.
He's unbelievable.
Well,
I was shocked to find out he's interested in a particular girl.
Oh, yeah.
But that's another issue.
We won't say the name.
We will not say the name.
But we're sitting here and we're getting to model a student pastor and a lead pastor that are decades apart, that have a relationship, and what that could look like.
Oh, so we're decades apart? Oh, good. Right. I was thinking I thought our age was closer than this.
So there's a ton of value in it, because it shows them, hey, I can have a relationship with someone older than me. Mm-hmm. There's mentorship in that. There's things I can learn. There's ways I can see things differently.
Hey, your student pastor is unbelievably influential in a person's life often. Mm-hmm. So like the guy, our student who's here, great guy.
Yeah.
He has had 3 student pastors since he's a senior. So he's had 3 student pastors. And it's really, I mean, they have an influence on him. And you being here now for these last years, that's starting to really impact him. And the guys who you'll be with, like from when they're, I don't know, like 6th grade on, man, what an influence. I mean, they'll talk about you. They'll talk about you when they're like middle-aged men and women, and they'll come back. So we had a funeral here last year, and a bunch of this youth group came back from probably 30 something years earlier, and when they just connected again, and they were talking about things, because the guy who passed away was
their student pastor.
All those years ago. And so there is something powerful about the role of a student pastor in their life, and when his relationship is good with the senior pastor and the senior pastor with him, it just builds it all the more.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's how they see the church then, because if their student pastor sees that his role is, I'm just separate from the church, and we do our thing, and then the church just does its thing. Well, that's what they think church should be like, because that's what they've seen.
Yeah. So then when they leave student ministry, like, what do I do?
I don't need church. Yeah. I just need something just for me. I don't need to be around people older than me or younger than me or different than me. Yeah. Man, we miss so much when we do that. We miss so much. All right, ready for these?
Yeah, rapid fire.
Rapid fire time. All right. You're supposed to do the first one, Mariano.
All right. What's one piece of advice you'd give to lead pastors about working with student pastors?
Lift weights. No, I don't think that helps. I think, if you will value them and help them know that you value them, that you really value them as people and their ministry. They're not junior pastors, you know. They are real, loved by God pastors doing real ministry to real people. I think that's how the Lord expects us to do it. There's no it's not like, well, someday when you're a real pastor. No. Or if you're leading student ministry, maybe you're not a pastor and you're leading student ministry. Your role, your ministry is just as real as the ministry of anybody who has ever ministered in any area. God cares about ministry, and he values that ministry so much, and that's my advice. All right, that's now good. The next one's, what one piece of advice would a senior pastor give to student pastors about working with lead pastors? Oh, no, you're supposed to, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. What's one piece of advice you'd give to student pastors about working with lead pastors?
Yeah, so wherever you're at, listening to this, God's placed a lead pastor in your life and your church, and God's called him to lead that church. And my encouragement to you, student pastor, is don't assume that your lead pastor does not want a relationship with you, or a mentorship relationship with you, where he's pouring into you, discipling you. And so instead of assuming that, I'm asking you to go pursue that relationship with him. So go stop by, if you have to schedule it or however it works at your church setting. Ask him. Don't value his time, but then say, hey, is there a time where we can get together and just talk and get to know who your pastor is? Maybe you have a pastor that's been there for 10 years and he's got wisdom from year on and year out that you can learn and glean at. And doesn't mean you have to do everything the same way, but learn who he is, learn why he does what he does, and that's going to make you a better pastor in the long term.
Ask each other some questions too. I mean, find out about their life. Find out if something about history and past. I mean, just like get to know them. So when your grandparents pass away, you'll say, man, I never asked them about that. I never found out about what this or that. And why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's something valuable in just learning about a person, and sometimes that helps you in a connection point too.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what's one thing both roles can do today to improve their relationship? You want to go first?
Me first.
Don't mess it up. This is a big one.
Kind of connected to what I just said. Just go pursue a relationship with your pastor. So go ask him questions.
You didn't want another question. You just said, I'm going to answer the same question.
Go ask him questions. So if it's today, if I'm giving you something to do today, like I said, schedule that meeting or find that time where it will work.
Yeah.
You get lunch and get to know your lead pastor. Like Pastor Doug said, ask him questions. Like I know Pastor Doug's professor and mentor is Dr. Fish. I didn't know that, right? Professor Fish.
Dr. Fish, yeah.
I wouldn't have known that if we didn't have a conversation and I've learned about you, right?
Yeah. Well, right. And I think nothing replaces time, probably, right? I mean, just time together can make a difference. And sometimes, I don't know, like there's nothing wrong with going together on a hospital visit on occasion, or maybe on occasion just eating together, or just hang out a little bit, talk about, it's okay to talk about something besides ministry a little bit, talk about football. It's been a hard year for you to talk about football, I know. Sorry about Mariano is a 49ers fan, and I don't know when you'll listen to this, but it's not what you expected this year to be. Been a bleak year for you. That's all right.
Rough.
That's all right. Well, things like that are helpful to us to just know each other. Listen, if God has allowed you to serve in some ministry in a church, whether it's vocationally or as a volunteer, it's a great privilege. And I want you to never take that lightly. Like, really, what an awesome thing that God allows you to participate in the work he's doing. He's the one who saves and changes lives, but he allows you to participate. And that's pretty neat. And so do that well, and do that with some other people, and enjoy that journey, and that'll still matter 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
1,000 years from now.
That's right.
Well, I'm glad you joined us on Encouraging Faith, and hope we can be an encouragement to you a little bit. And pray for your church. You know, that's something you can always do. Pray for your church, and pray for your pastors or your leaders or your Sunday school life group teachers, whatever it might be. Pray for them and encourage them a little bit along the way. Encouragement matters. God bless you. Thanks for being with us today.